Hi, I'm John Daly, and this is the introduction to my leadership workshop on relationship building, how to build strong relationships. I've been in business for over 50 years, all the way from running a gas station, leasing a Skelly station at age 18, to CEO of a few companies, turnaround specialist. I merged two not-for-profits, and I've been a trusted business advisor for 36 small business owners, running 3 mastermind groups. I'm hoping that I can take this experience, these failures, these successes, my pivots, and figuring out how to take that failure and turn it into a success, and share that with you. That's the goal of this workshop. How do you inspire people in your life and your career? I've worked with so many leaders. This is one lesson every leader, whether it's of a family, friends, team, they all need to learn. They have to inspire people to get amazing things done. And one of the ways you know that is, do you see bright, shiny eyes looking back at you when you talk to stakeholders? Do they see you as a trusted business partner, a trusted family partner, a trusted teammate? Because if they don't, I don't care how good you are, you can't be seen as a subject matter expert. I worked with a gentleman that I thought the world of, amazing RN, nurse, amazing cath lab tech, probably one of the best in the industry. And he got thrown out of a hospital. And the reason he got thrown out of the hospital is because he was so confident in what he knew, it came off as arrogance. And he insulted the cardiologist, the head of the department, and they asked me to escort him out. Now, director of nursing and the director of medicine said, John, we know how bright he is, we know how good he is, but he's not going to get that doctor to listen to him because the doctor doesn't want anything to do with him, he doesn't respect him. So even though he is a subject matter expert, he was not seen as one. It's all about earning endorsement, right? You have to know yourself. How do you like to communicate? How do you like to be communicated with? Control yourself. That means knowing others and how they want to be communicated with, and being able to adapt your personality, your communication style to them. Do things for other. Do something for other. The biggest thing in relationship building is giving, not getting. When you order or direct somebody to do something, they're going to do as little as possible, and in a lot of cases watch your back. When you inspire someone to do something, they're going to do amazing things. They're going to amaze you and them. And isn't that what we're after? To exceed even our own expectations, our own goals. So to do that, we have to understand and successfully communicate with people, inspire them, see bright, shiny eyes looking back at us. Who are all these people? I think I've listed most of them here. Stakeholders in your life and in your career are all the people around you. Usually when I get a new client, they don't like going to work. They're kind of demotivated, decoupled. So they hire me to figure out what to do to make their life better. That's all about building relationships and respect. Once you do that, I've had people come back to me, this is when I know I've done a good job. When they look at me and say, John, I love going to work again. John, I love seeing my teammates. I love seeing my family. That's when I know I've done a good job, because they're building solid relationships. So why are you going to do this? I just shared probably the biggest reason. What are you going to achieve? A happy life, a successful career. And that's going to excite you, right? What does that mean to you? Promotions, happy family, amazing events. That's what it means to you, right? So what does a relationship look like when it's in trouble? This guy. There's no bright shiny eyes looking back at you with this guy. This guy's not inspired to do anything. That means you showed up in a different state of mind in your head, or he did, or both, or she did, or both. You show up with a different energy level. What energy level do you think that guy in the last picture has? Is he excited to be at work? Is he excited to be at home? Or is he kind of demoralized, angry, upset? on an emotional roller coaster, and I'll explain what that is during the workshop. Your mind says you're suffering when you don't feel appreciated. Did that guy look like he might feel like he's suffering? He's at least angry. Proximity. When people start avoiding you, that means you have no relationship or you have a bad relationship. I used to, before I learned all this stuff, and I worked in hospitals for years, critical care medicine, ORs and ERs. When I go through a hospital and if I saw a director of nursing or a doctor I didn't care for, I'd turn down the next available hall. I'd go into a room just to avoid them. Proximity. I didn't want to be around them. When I saw them, what did that do to my energy level? It tanked it, right? So make sure that you're working on these things. You're paying attention when you're observing these things, because that means you need to work on your relationships. What happens when there's loss of attraction, we call it depolarization. Resistance comes from your mind, not your heart. You're talking to people from your head, and it usually comes across terse or judgmental or critical. That's all coming from your head, not your heart. When you come from your heart, you're in it with them for success, and when there's bumps in the road, you figure out how to get through them. You don't figure out who to blame. Resentment. Mind, not heart. Generalize, distort, dismiss. One partner is feeling unloved, unrespected, uncared for. The partner is feeling unloved is in survival mode, right? And proximity becomes an issue. They want to avoid you, or you want to avoid them. Rejection, pissed off, unreasonable. They're stacking. What does stacking mean? Think about where you were on 9/11. I bet you can tell me, especially if you're my age, but you can tell me exactly where you were. I was sitting in a restaurant with a cup of coffee in front of me, waiting for a sales rep to show up so I could ride with him for that day. And I saw it unfold on the TV up in the corner. How many years ago was that? And I remember it that vividly. Stacking. So if I call you a jerk, in my mind, everybody has a different definition of a jerk. It's a judgment, right? But it's not a common judgment. Everybody has a different definition. But the emotional charge is there. So if I call you a jerk, picture I put a sticky note on your forehead that says you're a jerk. And then you do something else that upsets me. I put that on a sticky note, I stick it on your head. And then you do something else and something else and something else. Pretty soon your face is covered with sticky notes. And every time I walk into a room where I see you, every one of those sticky notes comes to mind and I just cringe. Or I'm upset. Or I'm ready to fight. Or I'm ready to get the hell out of there. That's stacking. And that will trash a relationship. Repression. Two people living in the same house. They do not talk about family. They do not address problems. Solutions. They're more interested in the ship than the relations. So let's talk about 3 mistakes men make with women. And again, we'll go into much more detail with this one in the workshop. The 3 U's, we call them. Unseen, not understood, unsafe. Unseen. Do you verbalize that you acknowledge what she says with love? If you don't, and she doesn't think you're listening, or you're actively doing something else while she's talking, she feels unseen, not understood. Everybody knows men like to fix things. I do. I love fix. Somebody gives me a problem, I'm immediately trying to figure out how to solve it. And I won't stop until I do. It's hysterical to watch. Women don't work that way. Women use both sides of their brain where men usually use mostly one side. Women like to vent. They like to discuss the challenge in great detail, the situation. And they don't want you to solve it, they want you to listen. They want to know that you are listening to understand them, because that's how they figure out what to do. As soon as you start bringing up a solution, they're upset. And men make that mistake all the time. Unsafe. If you're upset, she's going to feel unsafe. Are you a calming presence, or when you walk in the room, does the tension just immediately jump? Do you reset? Suggest to come back later to end a disagreement? To get rid of the emotional upset so you can come back at it with a clear head? If not, she's going to feel unsafe. 3 mistakes women make with men. 3 C's. Criticize. Men hate to be criticized. You want to see a man jump to attention, criticize them. They're immediately going to start thinking about why you're wrong. And they're going to start coming up with examples of why you're wrong. They're not going to be hearing the criticism because you're wrong. Closing yourself off from him. And I hear wives do this all the time to men. Sometimes women do it to men at work. You close yourself off to them, they're going to distance themselves from you. That's going to make the relationship even harder to bring back to a positive situation. And you hear women saying, well, I've trained him. Men hate to be controlled. Literally, they hate to be controlled. They love teamwork. They love figuring out things as a team, but they do not want to be controlled. If you see a manager controlling his people, go back to the situation where I said, when you ordered somebody or force them to do something, you're going to get as little as possible. That's what happens when you control people. What does a great relationship feel like? A great relationship is when you give more than you get. When people go out to network, to build relationships, when I'm teaching people how to build relationships so that they're never unemployed. If you show up and you say, do you have a job for me? You're looking for them to give you something. They end the discussion as quickly as possible. They don't know you. Why should they offer you a job? Because they don't know you. Everybody's looking for a job. They need to get out of there. But if you go to a networking meeting, or you have a outing with your wife or your husband, and you're seeing what you can give them to make the experience amazing, you're going to see bright, shiny eyes looking back at you. And you're going to get more than you thought. A transaction is where you get. So when you show up, and I used to hear people say, John, I hate to network. Especially CEOs and vice presidents. I'd say, I suggest people network with you to build relationships. They say, John, I hate networking. And I'll say, why? What's the deal? And they say, well, because all people want to do is tell me what they want from me. Why should I even be there? I don't know them. Why should I do something for them if I don't know them? I don't know their character. I don't know how good they are. I don't know their skills. And they're asking me for a job or a reference. When you meet with somebody and you ask them about their job, their industry, their company, what do they love about it? What are the challenges? Why are they there? What do they hope to accomplish in the future? And people love to talk about themselves. Everybody knows that. Doctors love to teach. When I was in medical all those years, I always asked doctors questions. Some of the doctors I had more training than they did. Didn't matter. I still asked questions because they wanted to teach. They wanted to tell me what they knew. And I was more than glad to listen because I built relationships, strong relationships. And people saw me as subject matter experts when they did more of the talking than I did. I saw bright, shiny eyes looking back at me. So what's the state of mind you bring to your relationship? What meaning do you bring to your relationship? Is it love? Or is it a transaction? What are they going to give me? What actions and thoughts that come from your heart do you put into the relationship? Are you open to bringing faith and courage to a relationship so that even when things go bump in the night, when things collapse, when crises happen, you look at them and say, okay, how are we going to work through this together? Not, you jerk, why'd you let that happen? And trust me, I make that mistake today. I have to catch myself and correct it, apologize. But that's bringing faith and courage on focusing on the success of the relationship, not any instance during the relationship. And I learned this, it drastically impacted my marriage, impacted my relationships at work and my friendship. It's 100% me and 0% them. I'm going to do whatever it takes for this relationship to be successful, regardless of what they do. And my wife will tell you it's 100% her and 0% me. She's going to do whatever it takes to make the relationship successful, regardless of what I do. That's opposite of, I'll do this if you do that. I'll do this much of that if you do this. That's transactional. That's not a relationship. That's doomed to failure. So how do we deal with resistance, resentment, rejection, repression? We're going to work on this in the workshop. You have to have courage to open your heart up again, and you're going to learn to talk to people from your heart, not your head. You're going to learn to talk to people, with people, not at people. You're going to have faith, because there are going to be things that go wrong, but you're in it for the long run. And you're going to have faith that your relationship's going to be successful in the end. Willingness and receptivity to be honest and take responsibility. I remember the president of Enterprise was on a board with one of his vice presidents. And he shared with me that the owner of Enterprise said to him, look, while you're here as vice president, there are going to be mistakes. You're going to have failures, mistakes. I just need you to bring them to me, be man enough to share with me what happened, and the two of us are going to figure out how to pivot and fix it. Now that's a relationship. It's not a transaction. Have compassion and love. Can you see where that CEO had respect, compassion for the vice president? He didn't come across as non-caring. I love this saying. It's from a Hawaiian, I think it was a tribal leader. And in Hawaii, they say, when you make a mistake, look the person in the eye and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. You look them in the eye and you say that 3 times. If I'm at home or if I'm with a friend, I might say, I care about you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. If I'm with a colleague, I might say, I respect you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. I say it with conviction and sincerity in their eyes. I'm looking into their soul. And you would not believe the change in my state and in their state from having a relationship. Sometimes if it's with your spouse, they may cry because they just realized you care. This is crucial if you think about it. When you watch people interact with their family, do you pay attention if they're loving and respectful, or if they're hateful or judgmental? If they're loving and respectful, are you more likely to have a relationship with them, professional or personal? What about if you watch them at work, and I did this all the time when I'd work with sales reps, when I was a sales rep years ago. I'd watch how my customer would deal with his teammates, because that would give me an indication of how they were going to deal with me, how I had to deal with them. If they love and respected their teammates, they cared for their teammates, I was much more likely to go out on a limb for them, to do more than I had to for them. If they love what they're doing, I hope you can tell, I'm supposed to be retired. I love sharing this information with you. And I love what I'm doing. And when I see people that love what they're doing, I'm impressed. It makes me more impressed with them, more likely to be open to a relationship. Who they're doing it for. Do they care about their customers? Do they judge their customers and decide which customers they're going to approve which customers they're going to throw away. Do they really care about who they're doing it for, regardless of their personality, regardless of their skin color, sex, any of that stuff? Do they really care who they're doing it for? Doesn't that make you impressed when you see that? As opposed to if they're judgmental, well, I don't work with those type of people. I don't want to be around that person. They could be saying the same thing about you when you're not around. You want to be around people that are inclusive. They love who they're doing it for. So what we're talking about is, how do you talk with people you care about so they enjoy the conversation? That's what I'm going to be teaching you through this workshop. You're going to learn to talk to them so it shows you care about them and their success. I used to sit down with every team member, even if I took over a company, and interview as many as I could, and I would try and learn how they defined success, what was important to them, what were their goals for their personal life and their professional life. I mean, I had a whole worksheet I figured out, and it was just so that I could be responsive to them from their point of view. What was important to them? We used to call it with them. What's important to me? Everybody asks that when you try and sell them something, when you try and engage with them to do something. What's in it for me? With them. Show your appreciation and effort in a manner that they appreciate. If I'm with a driver, and I'll go through the 4 behavioral styles, one of them is a driver. If I'm with a driver, I'm not going to talk about going to a ball game during a business meeting, because they're not going to appreciate that. I think when you're a business, you need to be respectful of business time and stick to talking about business. It's not that they don't care about people, it's that they're being respectful of their company's time. If I'm dealing with what we call an S, or I call them team builders, and I don't talk to them about how the team is doing, about how their team will react to a decision, they're going to shut me off. You've got to learn how to communicate so they appreciate it. Take the time to communicate for buy-in. And I talked about this a little earlier. Make sure you're listening to hear and understand, and you ask questions to verify that you really understand what they said to you and you didn't misunderstand. When you verify and you ask questions, people know you're listening, and that helps build a stronger relationship. Know how to manage stress personally and in others. And one of the things I'll teach you, and we have, I think, a 40-page, depends on the person, assessment that we do. And I'll offer it to you as well. In that assessment, you'll see this is what you do under mild stress. This is what you're like under no stress. This is what you're like under extreme stress. Why do we care? Because when you're under no stress, you're not going to change or make a change. Think about it. Well, the car's doing great, seems to be fine. I'm not stressed about the car. Why would I buy a new one? But if the car's a mess, let's say I got in a wreck and you want to sell me a new car, I'm so upset about the wreck, I can't think about buying a new car. That's just one example. Think about things in your life when you've been so upset. Are you willing to make changes in your life when you're that upset, or do you need things to be normal? No, you don't want any changes when there's extreme stress or no stress. When you're moderately stressed, that means that you're willing to do something to make a change. How do you identify that? How do the 4 different behavioral styles react to stress? How do you modify their stress? If I was in a meeting and the stress level obviously was climbing, and I could see that the people's glasses were getting red, and I'll explain that in the workshop. If I could see they were getting that upset, I would stop the meeting. I'd say, okay, let's take a break. We're going to go have a cup of coffee, get water. Come back in 5 minutes, and we're going to redefine what our goal was here, and then we'll reconvene. I just disrupted the upset, got them to go think about something else, and when they come back with more of a clear head. And then I re-engage with them, remind them what our goal was. That even more gets them back on track. So you've got to know how to manage people's stress. So remember, the state of mind is important. How do you show up? Do you think about other people's needs, or do you just think about yours, what you have to get done? Do you show appreciation in a manner that they appreciate? Do you communicate clearly from the other person's point of view? If they're a driver, they want tasks, they want bullet points. If they're analytical, they need details, lots of details. And you can go through all four, and I'll share that with you. So you need to be able to communicate in a way that they appreciate. You have to get buy-in, and you have to verify. So in this workshop, we're going to talk about how do you inspire people in your life and your career, because that's what's going to determine your success. How do you know it's because you see bright, shiny eyes looking back at you? We're going to talk about how you get that. How can you be seen as a trusted business partner, a trusted family partner, a trusted friend? And how do you be seen as a subject matter expert? We're going to look for endorsement. How do we get that done? It's all about understanding behavior and appropriate responses to people. That leads to interpersonal effectiveness. And that leads to successful relationships and a great life for you, a great career for you. And if you follow these goals, you rarely will have to look for a job. People will be offering you jobs. And I know that may seem far-fetched, but I've done close to 3,000 executives I've done career coaching for. Not because I'm a career coach, but because I'm an executive coach. And they went after 2007, so many people got fired and laid off. People that have been working with companies for 20, 25 years, and my sister asked me to help get these people back employed. Because I have a background in psychology, I worked with the CEOs and senior VPs that were just devastated. And I'm going to share those things with you so that you can have an amazing life. I want to sincerely thank you for spending time with me, talking about a topic I'm clearly passionate about. My hope is that whether you decide to take the workshop or not, you feel like you got some tips you can use to help with your relationships. If you're like me and you have to be the best you can be, I strongly encourage you to sign up for this workshop today. Let's do a deep dive into the tools, skills necessary to be amazing with the relationships in your life.